Hello everyone, welcome. I'm Mechid, and today I have the honor of inviting Shamsiya for an interview today. Shamsiya is a young journalist from Melbourne, Australia, and she's here to talk about her work and her education. Now, it's such a great honor to have you here with us today, Shamsiya. Welcome.
Thank you so much, and salam. It's great to be here and join you and have a chat with you today, so I'm looking forward.
Yeah, it's such a great honor and we're really excited for this. Now, can you explain a little bit about yourself and, your work and what you do?
Well, I'm a 23-year-old journalist in Melbourne, Australia. I'm still in my final year of education at university, right in Melbourne. So I'm studying Bachelor of Communication, majoring in journalism, and I've been living in Melbourne for about 14 years. So Melbourne has been home to me and my family, so yeah.
Wow, that's so nice. Very lovely. You also work as a podcast host for Bullock Analyst Network. Could you explain a bit about why you chose to join together with Bullock and why you chose to work there?
Absolutely, yeah. Bullock's motive aligns with mine, and I think nowadays with so many options and so many platforms, it's a bit hard to find what you're looking for. And Bullock is one of the platforms where I connected the most, because it's a platform where it gives young people the opportunity to raise their voice, to give their voice, and it's a think tank for the young generation. It connects people, especially the young generation, not only in their current home or country, but also in their previous or their birth country. So it's a great way and it's a great platform to connect with one another.
Yeah, that's true. And it's a really good way as well to, exactly as you say, really connect with the people that you usually don't necessarily connect with, and share all the news for the day.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, very nice. You also have a story, I've heard, from back in your childhood, one of your first educational experiences that you had when you first came to Australia, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and that's such an exciting story. Could you explain a little bit about what happened there? Could you share it with us?
Sure. So when we came to Australia, I was only 9. We migrated from Afghanistan as refugees to Australia with my family, and I remember the first day that I attended school in Melbourne. I went to a language school to learn the basics of English, and I remembered my first day in my class. The teacher asked the class who knew their alphabet, and we all, obviously each languages had their own interpreter, and the Dari interpreter translated what the teacher said, and I raised my hand, as a young, confident kid, I think with too much confidence. I raised my hand and I stood up reciting A, B, C, D, and I stopped, I'm waiting for applause, and the interpreter right next to me, she goes, go on, and I look at her back and I say, is there more? So to me, to come to Australia with merely knowing the first 4 letters of the alphabet to somewhere where I'm, to where I am now, it has been a great, work in progress. It has been a great milestone and a great achievement for me. It's great to be here, and it's great to have that opportunity to start again. My parents, they didn't have the same opportunity as I did, and I make sure that I use my opportunity as much as I can.
Yeah, definitely. That's really, really important as well. You also, as you say, you obviously come all this way and you have so many more opportunities in front of you, and you have so many more options to choose from as well, especially from your parents' perspective. How was it to, transfer your whole life from one place to another that are completely different, have completely different cultures and different, ways of thinking and ways of being? How was that for you?
To be honest, as a young kid, coming to a new country where you don't speak the language, where you don't know the people, you don't know the culture, it's very different and it's very isolating. For the first couple of my years in Melbourne, I felt very isolated. I felt like I didn't belong, and my identity of being an Afghan and my identity being a new Australian was clashing, and it wasn't, I guess, connecting. And I felt like I'm in the middle of nowhere. I'm not in my home country where I called home, and I'm not in I guess in my new country as in like I'm in my new country, but is it home for me? Because I don't feel belong, because I don't feel accepted. And so, as a young kid, you have this desire of being connected with people, especially with other kids in the playground, at school. And, when you lack the knowledge, when you lack the language, when you don't have, I guess, the understanding of the culture, it's very hard for you to blend. And for the first couple of my years, I struggled so much with displacement,
Yeah, that sounds really difficult. And also with having such a different background than many other people that were, for example, in your class back when you were in school. How was it, the challenges that you maybe met, and how was it different from some of the other kids in your class back when you were, a young student?
I think the biggest struggle was, that feeling of belonging and being different. Obviously, moving to a new country, on your own will is different than being forced, to move in a new country as a refugee, especially to a country that you're so foreign to, with that's the language, the culture, or just anything in general. And I think one thing that really, really motivated me to work really hard and to be where I'm at now, is the fact that a lot of women in Afghanistan, who, young people, young girls like myself in Afghanistan, who are much more brighter, I guess, who are much more smarter and more determined, but they don't have the platform, but they don't have the opportunity. And for me not to use this opportunity, for me not to use this platform, is a waste of time, and it's a waste of opportunity, and it's degrading not only on, I guess, for the opportunities that I have, but it's a shame, I guess, if you have to put it, like, if you sum it up, it's a shame. Like, you have what many other people would do anything to have. So if you don't use it, then it's a waste.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of like a duty that you have to fulfill for these other people that maybe not have had the opportunities and the same chances that you've gotten.
Absolutely,
I
agree. And being a young voice as a young Afghan, voice, especially a woman, it's very important. You and I were both come from, a war-torn country, and it's very important for us to use this opportunity, and it's very important for us to show the other young girls, not only in Afghanistan but in here, that change can happen, that if we use our time wisely, if we work for what we want, if we stay determined, if we're willing to help in any way that we can, change can happen.
Yeah, for sure. That's really, really important, and that's also connecting back to what you do now, for example. How has that helped you, or helped you decide what you wanted to do as an adult, and how you wanted to help and give back to the community that you came from through your work? How has that whole decision been made for you?
Absolutely, yeah. So one of the main reasons why I chose to study journalism, for example, is because, as I said, a lot of women in Afghanistan don't have a voice. They don't have the opportunity. People like my mom, she didn't have the same opportunity as I did, especially in terms of education. And for me to be a young journalist, a young voice, is a huge, huge opportunity, because one day I hope one day that I get to give those, I have the opportunity to give those people who are voiceless a voice, to give them a platform to raise their voice, and to remind them that the world hasn't forgotten about them. And this is very important for me, because I don't want to waste my opportunity in here, and I want to do something with my knowledge of back home, and I want to use that, I guess, the obstacles that I faced as a way of creating opportunity, not only for myself, but for the people who are, in the same position as I was 14 years ago. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's really great. You build yourself up in a place where you actually can build yourself up in these modern, countries, and then you kind of take that work and you bring it back to where you originated from, and then you help the people, give them a voice from there on, and that's really, really good thing.
Absolutely.
We'd like to hear more of that. We'd like to see more people do that as well. And you also have, for example, some plans for your future. Am I right? For example, when you want to talk about transferring this or raising people's voices, going to different places, what are your future plans, and what do you tend to, is there anything further, or is there anything extra that you really want to achieve?
Absolutely, yeah. So I guess my ultimate goal is to become a voice for the voiceless, whether that's male, female, child, adult, whatever, or whoever needs my voice. And I guess my ultimate goal or plan is to become an international foreign correspondent. So this way I have the opportunity to go to countries like Afghanistan, to go to war-torn countries and get the stories from a perspective that I guess that has seen it from, the first hand. So, I was born in Afghanistan. I lived there for the first decade of my life. I lived there. So I know what it goes in there. I know what goes behind the curtain. And a lot of, I guess, the journalists who were born in this country, in a modern country, they don't have the perspective, or they don't have the experience of, let's say, a journalist like me. Because I know, I understand, I know what goes behind the walls, and I've experienced it, so I know what it feels like. I'm not only, I guess, writing things and producing things based on facts and evidence. I'm writing things and producing things based on my experience and my understanding of the conflict or the war, the stories that people tell me. And I think it's very important that people, young people, especially refugees, to use this opportunity that we have now, to help those people who are still in need, to help those people who are still in the same position as we were, a few years ago. And yeah, I guess that's it.
Yeah, that's really important, because as you say, there's so much more going on behind the curtains, especially in countries like Afghanistan that has been such a terrible war zone in so many years and so many decades even. And the fact that you want to bring that out to the media, show it to the world, show what actually is going on, and maybe also what beauty Afghanistan has to it, because that's maybe all that people see. They only see the bad things, they only see the terror in it. And yeah, so how would you attempt, or how would you maybe tell other people to attempt to kind of remove this, barrier that is between, the media and what's happening in Afghanistan, for example, with your, with all the stuff that you've seen, all the stuff that you've understood from the country?
I think, as you've mentioned, Michid, a lot of the modern media and a lot of modern journalists, what they report is what they see. The obvious things like the war zone, or, the bomb blasts. But, these are very important to, I guess, to let the world know what's happening. But when we think about it, when we think of a country, I think it's important to also think about the positive things. We shouldn't label a country as a dystopian world. We shouldn't see it that way, because there are people who are doing, a lot of amazing things in there, who are helping people, who are helping women, who are creating opportunities, and who are saving lives. And for us to just focus on the negative things, or just on the really, I guess, depressing things, is just disregarding their work, their efforts, and on what they're trying to do to improve the country. And I think as someone who was born in a war-torn zone, I guess, I have the opportunity not only to deliver the stories that that are sad and depressing, and I guess the war stories, but I also have the opportunity to produce stories that many other journalists don't have the opportunity to deliver, because for example, the stories that I share with my friends in here about Afghanistan, and particularly about my village, because that's where I grew up and spent most of my childhood in, is when I describe it, the fact that we lived between the mountains and there was a valley flowing between the villages, and the fruits, the way they tasted, the food, the way it tasted. I guess the vibe that people give to one another, and there's so much going on. There's people doing things voluntarily to help one another, for example. Whereas in here, everything's about money, everything's about business, everything is about what can I do to get as much wealth as I can. Whereas in there, people there's humanity. There's not much, but there is humanity. There's a bit of I guess compassion still remaining in those areas of Afghanistan. And I think it's very important to let the world know that there is still life, that there is still a bit of compassion and a bit of humanity left. And we shouldn't just disregard the good things that are still happening in countries like Afghanistan.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's important, and that's the whole point, right? That's the whole objective for you to, as a person who's seen, many different things, who has a different point of view than many other people, many other journalists, for example. It's important for you to bring out, the whole package, the whole aspect of a country like Afghanistan, and not only, the specific type that we've already always been focusing on, but, expanding and really exploring and opening people's eyes as well.
Absolutely.
That's a really, really good point.
Yes.
Now going back to Bulaq, because Bulaq also is, this platform, as you say, who they really try to remove this barrier and make everything transparent and really show what's going on in countries like Afghanistan, for example. Why is it that you, for example, are interested in Bulaq and their work, and could you maybe explain a little bit about their work and why we need such a platform, for example, like Bulaq, to really expand our views on these topics?
Absolutely. I mean, I think my first and foremost reason for joining Bulaq was because Bulaq is a platform that's not afraid to go deep and dig deep. It's a platform. It's a platform that isn't afraid of telling stories that many other platforms will, I guess, resist when it comes to sharing it or telling it. And I think it's important to tell the ugly side of countries like Afghanistan, as well as to tell the good side. Before joining Bulaq, I had no idea of most of I guess a lot of things about even my own ethnicity. Like as a Hazara, I had no idea where the history, where we came from, where it all started. And by joining Bulaq, I had that opportunity to dig deep and actually ask questions. Is this really happening? Is this really happened? Or did this really happen? And everybody knows that Hazaras are the most targeted ethnic groups in Afghanistan, and that's pretty obvious. And a lot of people, when it comes to, I guess killings of the Hazaras or genocide of Hazaras, a lot of people, they put up this mask of, we're all one, we're all brothers and sisters, we're all Afghans, and but as soon as a genocide happens, as soon as a group of Hazaras get killed, all this brotherhood, all this I guess unity just disappears. There's no more. I don't know. I think the only thing that I see is, I guess from my own platform, I'm speaking from my own perspective, is that majority of the people who stand up for the Hazaras in Afghanistan are the Hazaras. And I think if we really need to ask questions, that we need to start asking questions like, are we really united, or are we just saying that to make ourselves, you know, look like the hero or look good? And I think that's why I joined Block, was not only to get to know myself as a Hazara, but also connect with many other people and, you know, dig deep into the stories that many people are afraid to share. So,
Yeah, I just say it's really important to also get the bad side, the bad view of things, and really show the truth that is, you know, underlying underneath all these stories and all these media attention that it also gets. And yeah, I just say Bulak is so good with also connecting different people and connecting different generations, especially people that are maybe coming from homes that have like immigrated to a different country, or generally people of different cultural backgrounds. They're connected to their, you know, older generations, or connecting their younger generation, educating each other back and forth, you know, that's really important. And that's why we also have this interview, you know, we're showing that we are able and capable of, you know, transferring this kind of the whole experience and all this, all these stories about what's actually going on in the country.
Absolutely, and I think one thing you've pointed, Michid, is that this connects people, not just the Hazaras, not just the Afghans, but the broader community. For example, it connects people like my parents who don't speak English, but they can still watch the Farsi version of, you know, of the analysis, and they understand. They get a glimpse of what's going on around the world, what's going on in Afghanistan, as well as, you know, for podcasts, the ones that I produce and you produce. You know, people who don't speak Dari, people who don't speak Farsi, they have the opportunity to listen and really, I guess, engage with us and understand our stories and where we came from. Yeah, and I think that's very important.
Yeah, exactly. Because so many people, for example, even if they come from Afghan backgrounds, they might not have, you know, Dari or Farsi as their main language, or even, you know, in a wider span, we want to obviously share the story of Hazaras especially, but also Afghans in general, and the story of what's been happening in Afghanistan. I just say, like, people know that Hazaras have been killed massively throughout the years, but why have they been killed? That's not always, you know, as clear, or even who these people are, you know, what's going on. That's not always clear. So it's really good that, as you say, we've had this different multi-language platform that we can use.
Absolutely,
yes,
yeah.
That's very...
And also the emerging generations that are, you know, for example, our young brothers and sisters, you know, they're growing up in a foreign country, they're growing up in you know, in the, I guess, in the West. It's important for them to understand where their parents come from, what happens in their parents' country, what is going on, and it's a wonderful platform that connects. Doesn't matter where you're from, doesn't matter what language you speak, it connects people, I guess, in one way or another. Yeah.
Now, to the people that might be, you know, watching, you know, fellow brothers and sisters, for example, or anyone, is there any advice that you have, anything from your own personal experience throughout when you grew up in Australia, you know, going into journalism, or any message that you want to convey to the people that are maybe watching?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think as a young woman and as a young voice, I think my biggest advice is don't let your obstacles overwhelm your opportunities. Having said that, you know, as a woman, or as a girl growing up in Afghanistan, I witnessed a lot of sexism. I witnessed a lot of injustice being done to women. And, you know, though I didn't experience it as much as, you know, let's say my older siblings or my parents, for example, especially my mother, but I can, you know, witnessing is just as painful as, you know, experiencing it, especially being done to your loved ones. And I think, you know, I faced, you know, I guess injustice. I witnessed it in Afghanistan, in here when we moved to Australia. I went through displacement. I went through Islamophobia. You know, as a hijabi, I faced a lot of I guess racism as well firsthand. And but I could have felt sorry for myself. I could have threw pity party for myself and just made myself be the victim, for the rest of my life. But I didn't. I used those obstacles. I used those, I guess, experiences and negative experiences to motivate myself to get somewhere, to motivate myself to ensure that no one else faces the same injustice as I did or as I witnessed. And like I said, don't let your obstacles overwhelm your opportunities, because there are so many opportunities. And when you use your struggles, when you use your your hardship in order to get somewhere, that's a beautiful way of looking at life. That's a beautiful way of seeing the meaning behind life, I guess, instead of just feeling sorry for yourself and not doing anything and just, I don't know, day by day getting worse. Things happened, okay, it wasn't fair, it wasn't justice, but move on, do something, not only for yourself, but for your people, but for your country, but, with the country that you live in, the country that you came from. Work hard and get somewhere and be determined. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really great advice. You're showing that it is possible to turn something negative into something positive, something for your own advantage. And yeah, in the end, it's you who stands for your own life, It's your own decisions that will lead to how your life turns out.
Absolutely.
And yeah, you can make great things if you don't let anything stop you, obviously.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Shamsiya, for this amazing interview and for sharing your experiences and your point of views on these different topics. It was really lovely to chat with you.
Thank you so much, Michid, for having me. And I think before I go, one last advice that I have for for the viewers is that a girl, and this is something that I remind myself constantly, a girl who came to Australia, a girl who came to a whole new country with merely knowing the first 4 letters of the alphabet is the same girl who's studying at one of Australia's most trusted corporation, as a journalist, as a young journalist. So, as I say, the girl with the ABC is the girl at the ABC. So, if I can do it, and if I can do it as a woman, as a young woman, as a hijabi, as an Afghan, as a refugee, then what's your excuse?
Yeah, wow. It's such an inspiring story. You're so inspiring to so many young women out there. So thank you so much for today. It's been lovely to chat with you and to talk. Thank you everyone for watching. This interview with Shamsiya was so inspiring, and it was really interesting how we, focused on the bad things about immigration, the negative points, but how she also showed that there are so many advantages to immigration in general as well. And secondly, as Shamsiya also said, Bulaq is such a great platform, and we really encourage all of you to join the platform, because we really need to discuss all these topics that we, for example, only just touched upon today, and really, get further with this and explore further and decide how we can help the community even more. Thank you, everyone, and goodbye.